السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أحييكم وأرحب بكم في حلقة جديدة من برنامج بلا حدود. اتخذ الغرب الإسلام عدوا له بشكل علني في أعقاب تفكك الاتحاد السوفيتي في شهر أغسطس عام 1991. وركزت مراكز الدراسات والأبحاث وصناع القرار في الغرب على أن الخطر القادم الذي يهدد الغرب هو الخطر الإسلامي. وقد أعطى الغرب مبررا لنفسه بعد ذلك للقيام بالحروب السرية والعلنية ضد المسلمين منذ ذلك الوقت، حيث كان العالم الإسلامي من البوسنة وحتى أفغانستان مسرحا لتلك الحروب التي وصلت في النهاية إلى تقسيم ودمار كثير من الدول الإسلامية. إلا أن ذلك أدى في نفس الوقت إلى قيام كثير من الغربيين لا سيما المثقفين منهم بمحاولة التعرف على حقيقة الإسلام. وقد أدى هذا إلى انتشار الإسلام في العالم حتى أصبح الدين الأكثر انتشارا. ومن بين الذين دخلوا في الإسلام ضيف حلقة اليوم المبشر النصراني الأمريكي يوسف إستس، الذي أصبح اسمه بعد إسلامه الشيخ يوسف إستس رغم أنه كان منصرا أمريكيا. ولد يوسف إستس في الغرب الأوسط الأمريكي في عائلة أمريكية وهبت نفسها لبناء الكنائس والدعوة للنصرانية. حصل على الماجستير في الفنون وعلى درجة الدكتوراه في علم اللاهوت، حيث كان يعمل بالتنصير إلى جوار عمله بالتجارة. أسلم يوسف إستس على يد رجل أعمال مصري عام 1991 وتحول من داعية للنصرانية إلى أحد أكبر الدعاة للإسلام في أمريكا الشمالية والغرب، حيث أسس محطة تلفزيونية وعشرات المواقع على شبكات الإنترنت ومراكز دعوية مختلفة. وفي حلقة اليوم نتعرف منه على قصة إسلامه وإسلام العشرات على يديه والتحديات التي تواجه مستقبل انتشار الإسلام في الغرب. ويمكن لمشاهدينا الراغبين في طرح تساؤلاتهم أن يرسلوها إلينا عبر فيسبوك وتويتر. الشيخ مرحبا بك.
مرحبا، جزاك الله خير، السلام عليكم، رمضان مبارك. الحمد
لله الذي جمعنا وإياكم هذه الأمسية في عبر شاشة الجزيرة، والتي هي قناة مفضلة بعد قناتنا الدعوية.
أهلا وسهلا بك. ونحن من مدة نرتب لهذا اللقاء، ولكن الحمد لله أننا التقينا بك حتى تروي بداية للناس قصة إسلامك. كيف تحولت من قس تدعو للنصرانية إلى شيخ تدعو للإسلام؟
كما تعلمون أن الأمر طريف للغاية. أنت من مصر، والحمد لله رب العالمين أنا التقيت رجلا من مصر في العام 1991 وأعجبت به كثيرا. أردت أن أحوله إلى النصرانية لكي أنقذه ولكي يدخل الجنة، وشعرت أنني لم أفعل أي شيء آخر، فعلي أن أحول دين ذلك الرجل. كان ذلك هدفي، وأصبحت لنا صداقة قوية. عملنا سوية لأشهر، وكنت يا أحمد أراقبه ورأيت يفعل شيئا لم أرى الناس يفعلونه من قبل. رأيته وهو يمارس حياته وإيمانه ل24 ساعة في اليوم. كلما كان يعلمه له دينه كان يقوم به من وضوء وصلوات والصوم والأمور التي نحن مطالبون بعملها كمسلمين. وقلت له ذات مرة أنا لم أرى أحدا.
So I have a question. Do you ever get a day off? He started laughing. He said, "This is what we want to do. This is how we live. We don't want a day without oxygen. We don't want a day, without some nourishment. So of course we need our connection with Almighty Allah." I was very impressed with that.
ما تأثير هذا عليك؟
It had such an impact, not just on me, but others. I was a Protestant, as in doing preaching, musical work, things like this. But a Catholic priest, friend of mine, was also involved. And between the both of us, I was thinking, either we're going to get him for Protestant or we're going to get him for Catholic. One way or the other, we're going to convert this guy. But it was the priest.
يعني عملته عليه كماشة يعني.
Yeah, exactly. Catch him in the middle. I understood the sign language on that one. Yes, catch him in the middle. And it was the priest, though, who confirmed that Islam is haq. The priest, the qasis, he said to me, as a priest, we studied Islam, and what he's saying is true. Muslims do believe in the one God of Ibrahim, alayhi salam, Musa, Dawood, Suleiman, Isa, alayhi salam, Muhammad, alayhi salam, that believe in all of them and believe in the Kitab al-Maqdis and the Injil. And so what this means is that they have a similar understanding. It's just they don't accept Jesus as the Son of God, or somebody you have to go through him to get to God, and also that he's not your salvation, but he's teaching you the salvation. And I was surprised that here's a priest that knows this, and then the priest accepted Islam. What about that?
هو قبل الإسلام.
He accepted Islam.
قبلك أنت.
Yes, yes.
ودخل في الإسلام.
He did. Now, I was kind of holding back because I was trying to think, the things I learned in 3 months living with this man, traveling with him, convinced me that he had something very wonderful. But of course, I didn't want to say I want to be a Muslim. I mean, come on. I'm an American. How could you be a Muslim and an American? At least that's the idea I had. My father, who was...
يعني فكرة إن المسلم عندك لازم يكون عربي في ذلك الوقت.
Well, not even that. I didn't think about it being an Arab thing as much as I was thinking that you have to be from some other country. You have to be somewhere, And after I came into Islam, I ran into the same problem with an old lady who I knew her from our preaching. And she asked me, I became Muslim, so I went down to their village. She saw me wearing a thobe, a white thobe, and a ghutra, and have my beard. And she said, "Child, what's the matter with you? What happened to you?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, you're wearing a dress and you have a beard. What is this?" I said, "I became a Muslim." She said, "No, you can't do that." I said, "Why?" She said, "You're not from over there." I said, "Oh, over where?" She said, "Wherever they come from." I said, "Hold on a second, hold on." The word Islam, it comes from aslama. Aslama, it means surrender to God, submit to God, obey the commandments of God, then be sincere with God, and be in peace with God. And all of these words have to be there at the same time for Islam. And whoever does it is a Islam, Muslim. She said, "Oh, I see." I said, "You believe in God?" "Yes, of course I do." "Okay. And you want to do what God wants you to do?" "Yes." "And you would be sincere with God?" "Yes." "So you could be a Muslim?" "No, I can't." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because I'm not from over there." So it was still in her mind, you have to be from somewhere else. And I realized a lot of people have the wrong idea of Islam. Has nothing to do with ethnicity, has nothing to do with your bloodline, has nothing to do with your skin color, has nothing to do with anything other than the qalb. Al-qalb, the heart. Because if the heart is truly for God, and you really, really want to be close to Him, serve Him, you begin to ask Him, "Guide me." And that's what happened to me. As I began to ask Him to guide me, things started happening in my life, putting me on this path, this way. Many things happened. Many stories happened along the way that made it clear to me that really, if you really want to serve God, you can't make up a religion and expect Him to take it. It has to be, we don't say religion, we say deen in Arabic. Deen is best understood as what is your way? What's your deen? What is your way? And so somebody could not have a religion, but he still has a deen. It's what he does. Somebody could be a total atheist, mulhid. As a mulhid, we would say he's atheist, he doesn't have a religion, but he still has a deen. What he does, how he lives, what he practices, what he believes or disbelieves in, all of that's his deen. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in chapter 3, verse 19, Inna dina inda Allahil Islam. And the translation is best understood by saying, for sure, the way of life for you with God is to surrender to Him in peace. And then by translating all of it, people get the idea. Have you said, many translators will say, well, in the Din in Allah Islam, the only religion for God is Islam. No, it doesn't mean it like that. It means it that your way inside of you, He's not going to accept that you're going to have other gods beside Him. He's not going to accept that you make up your own commandments and break His commandments. It has to be on His terms, otherwise it's not right. This is where it makes more sense to go forward about 60 ayahs in the same chapter. Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 85. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا فَلَا يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. So whoever wants to make up their own religion, whoever wants to come up with some other gods, then Allah, He's not going to accept that. And those people are going to be with the losers on the Day of Judgment. So when I'm telling people about this, they go, oh, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I've put all these years into one subject, understanding words, understanding phrases, and understanding the tafsir of the Quran and the Hadith, so that when I talk to the people, they get it. And that was the biggest problem we had, is not understanding. There's a world of difference between what the media might show you and say, this is Islamic terrorism. There's no such thing. That's an oxymoron. An oxymoron, it's when you have a contradiction in terms. I like to use this example. Government, intelligence. Contradiction in terms. So you can't have Islamic terrorism. Islam is all about having peace between you and God, doing His will on earth as it is in heaven.
إذن أنت والقس الكاثوليكي، أنت بروتستانتي وهو كاثوليكي، اجتمعتما على شخص مسلم هو رجل أعمال يدعى محمد عبد الرحمن من الإسكندرية، حتى نذكر اسمه، حتى تقتسم هيدخل عندك كنيستك أم كنيسته، فالرجل بسلوكه هو الذي حولكما إلى الإسلام.
Yes. First of all, I want to say that I have to correct something. He was living in Alexandria recently, but he's originally from Mansoura.
بلدياتي يعني.
He's Saidi. Yeah.
لا المنصورة ليست في الصعيد. المنصورة في شمال
منيا.
من المنيا.
Yeah, Mansoura. I'm thinking of. Yeah.
من المنيا من الصعيد.
Yeah.
صح.
Because I'm thinking of your name actually, Mansour. Yeah, but yeah, he's from Minya, which is Saidi. Yeah. And because of the jokes and the humor, the happy people, the easy, take it easy kind of way, and some of the crazy things that the Saidi people do, he fit perfect with us in Texas because we're the same way. There's a little different accent. We got along so well, and I loved him so much, and I just kept thinking, I got to get him to Jesus, you know. I remember starting with him on something. Ahmed, what happened, I was trying to, from the first day I met him, I asked him, you don't believe in God, do you? He said, yes, of course I do. I said, huh? I said, do you know about somebody named Abraham? He said, of course. I said, let me read to you. And I got the Bible. I started reading Genesis, reading about Abraham. He has a son. He has to sacrifice so-and-so. And he's going, yes, we know that. That's right, we have you know, so many things. And I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. I can convert him now. One of the things I found out later, after I came to Islam, he is actually from what's the family of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His great-great-grandparents is Ali and Fatima. And because of this, he has a special understanding, really, of his own family. Going back to them means he also goes back to Abraham. I was actually asking the man if you know who your grandfather was. If you think about it, I'm saying, do you know who's Abraham? He's like, of course I do, it's my grandfather. So, but he didn't say it like that. He was so nice. He explained so many things, and it made it so that we all saw in him, in his character, as well as heard from him, what Islam was really about. I'll give you an idea of some of the things that happened along the way. He would always be ready to go and do whatever he could do to help. He was very helpful to everybody. And he didn't care about himself, he cared about others. And that I appreciate very much in anybody. Not, you know, what's in it for me, what's in it for me? No. Saying, how can I help? And one of the times we were, had our setup for sales and everything. We had bottles of things to sell, and he looked at the date. It expired tomorrow. But there were some other bottles that would not expire till next month. So when the lady started to buy it, he said, no, don't take that one, take this one. I asked him, why you did that? He said, this will expire tomorrow. I said, yeah, that's why we want to push it out, you know. And he said, I can't do that. In my religion, that's not right. He said, we have something here, I have to take that first. And that surprised me. I'd never heard somebody say something like that before. And the way that he treated people, the kindness and things, that I said, if we get this guy to Christianity, we can make him a saint right away.
ما هي الأشياء التي تغيرت في حياتك بعدما كنت قسا تدعو للنصرانية لتصبح داعية تدعو للإسلام؟
I always like to try to clear up this one particular matter, because people think that I was a priest, and the priest, of course, was the Catholic. My job was a music minister, and I played music a lot. I sold pianos and organs. That was one of my main reasons to go to the churches and work for free for them, so I could push off the pianos and organs and make a lot of money. We did millions of dollars in pianos and organs. I was the biggest dealer for Kimball and Hammond and so many different brands in the area where I lived in Texas. And by giving of my time this way, it helped me get inside, you know, to the workings of the churches and help them pick out the instruments. That was one. The other is to sell instruments to the people who also wanted to play music. So music was a big part of my life. That became a big test for me when I came to Islam, because in Islam, we don't focus on our worship with music. We don't do that. Our worship is to make a direct connect with Allah through the Quran. And we don't need any music. Well, should I tell you something funny that happened? One day, the priest, he asked Muhammad, can I go to your church or where you worship? He said, yes, go to the mosque with us. So they went. When the priest came back, we took him aside. We said, come here. What do they do? He said, what do you mean? You know, they slaughter animals, they make bombs. What are they doing in there? He said, no. He said, they line up straight rows. They're real quiet. They stand like monks. And they're just standing quiet. It was probably Dohar Asr. They were quiet. They made no sound. All of a sudden, he said they bowed, like in the Bible, it says they used to bow to their Lord. He said then they prostrated, sujood, on the ground, with their head on the ground. He said they fell on their faces. This is what it says in the Bible. He said, I was amazed. He said it was beautiful, beautiful. And so this was an opening for him, an opening. And then I said to him, okay, what kind of music did they have? He said, what? He said, they didn't have any music. I said, how are you going to worship God with no music? I'm thinking right away that would kill my business. Since then, I've found something much better than music. To listen to the Quran in Tarawih in Ramadan is just brings my spirit up higher than it ever did with music. Because now you're hearing Allah's speech. And you're hearing some of these qaris who have voices like angels. It's a wonderful experience. If anybody hasn't had a chance to listen to the Quran, they should open up their minds, their hearts, and their ears and listen to something much better than a piano or an organ.
شيخ، الصورة الذهنية للإسلام لدى الأمريكان ولدى الغربيين هي صورة مشوهة للغاية، وأنت كنت واحدا من هؤلاء. ما هي الصورة الذهنية المشوهة هذه، وكيف تغيرها من خلال دعوتك لهم للإسلام؟
Well, first of all, the picture that most people have of Islam in America is going to come to them either from the internet or from the media, television, radio, newspapers, and a lot of that is sensationalism.
والسينما.
Well, yeah, movies. I forgot about movies, yes. The movies are making some real strange things right now that really indicate or imply that this is all Islam is all about. This is all Muslims are about. And the reality, after I visited, I've been around the entire world as a circle. I went all the way around it one time, and I like that. And I visited many countries many times. And my personal experience of going to these places, I found Muslims to be of the kindest nature, most generous, most religious. Even the average person being very religious compared to other religions, as well as having that heart for other people. And this is critical. How could you be a true Muslim and you don't care about people? And so this is one of the lessons that we learn as Muslims. We have to care about other people. So when we hear these stories of Muslims did this, Muslims did that, I would like to make just one little adjustment. If you want to say some Arab people did this, you want to say Indonesian people did so-and-so, or American people did so-and-so, let's leave religion to the side, because as a matter of fact, the true Christian religion is about caring about your brother. The true Muslim religion is about caring about your brother. And if you can't open your heart to that, then you can't really embrace the true faith. So I would really appreciate the folks taking the time to think. If you see this over and over and over telling you a religion is so bad, you're saying that the biggest religion in the world is no good. At the same time, Muslims are over here saying the same thing about Christians or Jews. And I would really enjoy having a chance to get this on a level playing ground so that Muslims, Jews, and Christians could put aside this part. They can still have their other ideas, political agendas, whatever. I know that's not going to change. But at least let us don't blame things on the religion. And it also means, and I'm going to get in trouble, some people are going to get mad, maybe they'll throw me out of the country, but I have to say this. There are some people who call to an agenda which is not Islam and try to recruit these young people into it and make them believe, especially new people, because they don't know, make them believe that if you'll do this and you do that, you're going to go to paradise. But you're really not. You're really not, because that is not what Islam taught us. Am I in trouble?
أنا أريد
I had to say it, I'm sorry.
أنا أتفهم ذلك، لكن لأبقى في إطار يعني الدعوة للإسلام في الغرب. أسلم على يديك عشرات أو ربما مئات أو ربما آلاف من الغربيين، وهناك قصص مثيرة في إطار التحضير للحلقة عرفت منك بعضها. هل يمكن أن تروي للمشاهدين بعض قصص إسلام الغربيين؟ أسمع منك الإجابة بعد فاصل قصير. نعود إليكم بعد فاصل قصير لمتابعة هذا الحوار مع الشيخ يوسف إستس، أحد أبرز الدعاة للإسلام في أمريكا الشمالية، فابقوا معنا. Okay. 1 minute.
This is a good program for Ramadan. This is a very good program
Ramadan
for Ramadan.
and not Ramadan too, and for all time.
You think? May Allah reward you. Allah reward you. You're doing something very amazing. You're using a very special show that's viewed by 40 million people around the world, and you're using it for Islam.
We hope help a lot of people to understand.
If even one person accepts Islam from our efforts tonight, it's better for us than خير من الدنيا وما فيها.
Together, half.
Ameen. Ameen. جزاك الله خير.
أهلا بكم من جديد بلا حدود في هذه الحلقة التي نتناول فيها وضع الإسلام في أمريكا الشمالية مع الشيخ يوسف إستس أحد أبرز الدعاة للإسلام هناك. شيخ، ما أبرز القصص التي تتذكرها لبعض الشخصيات التي دخلت الإسلام على يديك؟
Many of the people that they ask me about, they see so many people come to Islam. You see it on YouTube, many of the shahadas that we give. And if you watch our television channel in America, you'll actually see people call in live and make their shahadas. If you come to my lectures, you see people do shahadas. So people begin to believe that I'm the one doing it. They forget that I didn't guide anybody. Allah does it. I just keep asking Allah every night, let me be there when people enter Islam. I just want to be there and see it. And it reaffirms my faith, increases my spirituality, and I become so happy and for people who see the light of true surrender to God, true Islam. So I want to maybe clear that up a little bit. The shahada that I'm most interested in on the Day of Judgment is my own. That's the one I want Allah to be sure, except this one. But there's some beautiful stories. Can you imagine that I met a man one time that he was looking for God so much that as a Christian, he couldn't get his, what he's reading in the Bible didn't match what he heard from preachers. What he was reading in the Old Testament especially didn't seem to fit having an intercessor between you and God. It seemed like that would be the opposite of what the message of the Old Testament. So he went from Christianity to Judaism, and he studied it, and he went to the rabbis and insisted that they let him become a Jew. And finally he got in, and then he spent the next 14 years studying Hebrew and going to these rabbis and begging them, tell me more, I want to learn this, I want to learn that, I want to know, and he was driving them crazy. It got to the point he got hung up on one subject that they have. You may not know this, but I will tell you. In the Jewish religion, for the rabbis especially, they told me, they never pronounce or write God's name. If you notice, if they want to write it, they will put, even in English translation, they will put a G, a dash, and a D. If you watch a rabbi, he'll do that, G-D. He's not going to write the word God. And that's not even a Hebrew word. How about if they knew what the word was? And according to him, they said we don't know what God's name is, or we're not allowed to say God's name. So one day when he was with some Muslims and they were doing sports and things, on the bench, he saw the Quran laying there, English Quran, imagine, translation, it's not even really Quran. Turned the page and he saw, and it said, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. He said, wait a minute, excuse me, it says name of God. Do you know God's name? He said, sure. We know his 99 names or attributes, but we know his main name too. He said, please tell me. They said, well, his name is Allah. He said, I need to know more. He began studying from this and explained to me, he said 2 years ago, I came to Islam from the Basmala. He didn't even read Fatiha, from Basmala, from the Bismillah. How important is it for us to explain from the Quran? This is number one in our dawah all the time. I like to come back and say the Quran said this, Quran said that. Show them. This is from Allah. This is from the creator of the universe. So this man came to Islam from what? Bismillah. Another man, as he grew up in religion, studying and thinking, in his mind, especially these days, in science and television and things, we know there are many worlds out there. Our universe is full of worlds. He said, how could it be there's so many worlds and no other life? Even dimensions around us that we don't see, like the jinn, for instance. We don't see them, but there's a world out there. So he said, I never found anything that said that God is talking about all the worlds, only talking about earth in the Bible. But then he also saw the beginning of Fatiha, Rabbil Alameen, Lord of the worlds. So when he saw that, he asked his friend, he said, in your book here, it has S, worlds. How come it didn't say Lord of the world? And he said, because there's many worlds. He said, this is what I'm looking for. I want to know this religion. You say God knows there's worlds? And he said, 1,400 years ago? He said, yes, of course. God created it. He should know. He said, this is my religion. He started looking more, reading more, and he became a Muslim. Baltimore, Maryland. Yep. And the two of these gentlemen that I'm just telling you about, both of them brought their families into Islam, their relatives coming into Islam with them, because people began to open their minds and hearts and understand the message of Jesus was, do God's will on earth as it is in heaven. This is twice in the New Testament. And what is God's will? Do what he wants you to do, his commandments. Whoever keeps his commandments, whoever follows those commandments, he's going to be the highest in the kingdom. That's in Matthew 5:17, very clear. He says, don't think, this is according to the Bible in English, it says that Jesus told him, don't think I came to destroy the Sharia, the law, the Torah. I did not come to destroy, but I came to fulfill. And whoever breaks the least commandment and tells you it's okay to do that, he's going to be the least in the kingdom. But whoever keeps the commandments and teaches this, he's going to be the highest in the kingdom. And wallah, that's exactly what Islam is teaching us. It follows up after that saying, and unless your taqwa, your righteousness, is more than the munafiqeen, you are the hypocrites, then you will never enter paradise.
ما هي مستويات الناس التي تدخل في الإسلام في الغرب؟
Academically, I've seen people enter Islam that were professors, scientists, but I've also seen people enter Islam that had almost no education at all, could barely read and write, and very simple people. So it's not...
ما الذي يجذبهم في الإسلام؟
I've tried to understand this myself, and I've asked scholars of Islam to help me to understand it. It appears to me that it's not so much about what you know, but it's about what you feel. What is in your heart? Because anybody can have a lot of knowledge or a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of influence on other people. But what is in your heart? Because if the heart is really open to Allah, then that's when Allah will have the good relation with you. And I found people in the Hindu religion, Buddhist religion, Christian religion, Jewish religion, that all of them that I'm talking about now had good hearts. And I didn't try to push them to anything. I would just think about what would get us a little closer today to worshiping God on his terms. And I've seen some people that took maybe a year. And I've seen other people, the fastest I ever saw was 3 minutes. 3 minutes, the fastest one. Shall I tell you?
أخبرني.
Okay.
نعم طبعا.
I was in New York, and I was starting a speech in the university. And I began with Bismillah, and I was just explaining a few things of submit to God on his terms. A man stood up and he said, I would like to accept this religion. I went, what? He came up to the stage. He said, what you just said is like you're talking straight to my heart. I said, huh? And I have a recording of him doing this on my website called Hear Islam. Yeah? It shocked me that he came up. I said, okay, I can leave right now. I did 3 minutes. I'm happy. But many people in that area have opened up their hearts and minds. And mostly I like to see people change their attitude. If Allah guides them, that's good. My idea is if we could just get people to change your attitude and be open, be receptive. Let's be together. Let's talk. Let's not put a wall between us.
أنا حينما التقيتك قبل أسبوعين في إطار التحضير للحلقة قلت لي كنت مجهدا ومرهقا فسألتك لماذا أنت مرهق؟ قلت إنك لم تنم لأنك كنت تتحدث مع إحدى فتيات مجلة البلاي بوي لأنها دخلت الإسلام. ما الذي يدفع فتاة مهنتها التعري أن تدخل الإسلام؟ ما الذي جذبها للإسلام؟
Well, okay, actually there were a number of people I was talking to at the time because we have a chat room. And I was talking to several women, some men, and young people, old people, everybody. And we had several shahadas all at the same time, as I was mentioning to you. But this particular one we have on our website, on Tube Islam, tubeislam.com, and we put it on there, and it's Playboy girl comes to Islam.
trueislam.com يا شباب، لو تضعوا اسم الموقع trueislam.com. تفضل.
Yeah, tube, you know, like an inner tube in a car or a television tube. I don't want to mention the other tube. I don't want to get in trouble.
Tube.
TUBE.com.
Okay.
And if you go there, just in the search box, you can just put in there Playboy, and it'll come up right away. Just put Playboy, and it'll pop up because it's the only one with that story. But she tells her own story.
لا بلاي بوي هيطلع بلاوي، لا احنا عايزين القصة بتاعت الفتاة بس.
Yeah. Well, she said that she had a horrible life. And she kept thinking she was okay, till she got into drugs, alcohol, bad things. And then she realized she was going to die. And she said, I don't want this. And she made up her mind to stop cold from this. She didn't go for treatment, nothing. She just stopped, and she started asking God to guide her. And anybody who asks God sincerely from their heart for guidance, you will see mu'jiza. You will, not miracles, karamat of Allah. You will see beautiful things happening around you. And that's what she experienced. And she came to Islam, and people try to get her, why did you leave this? Oh, you were beautiful, you were la 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 la. She said, that's not what I want. And another girl that I was telling you about, if you remember, she was the one who was out on the stage and going with these rappers, and she had tattoos all over her and crazy hair, and she would spit on the audience, and they liked it. They said, oh, she spit on me, she spit on me. And she would spit on all these people in their programs and their rap and the crazy stuff going on. Now you see her, she's quiet, very reserved, very nice lady. She has a child, and her mother is against her. Her mother's saying, no, I liked her better this way. How come she left that? She could make good money. She had a good position. She has money, money, money. So the mother liked the money. The mother liked her being crazy, but she didn't like her being quiet, praying, and everything. And she said, but mother, I treat you, look how I treat you, so nice. She said, oh, I don't need that. So it's strange, isn't it? Usually a mother will say, oh, I like the way my child became in Islam, and then they look at Islam. But not everybody is guided.
ايه اكتر القصص التي اثرت فيك ولن تنساها ممن دخلوا في الاسلام على يديك؟
You know, there's one story that happened, and it was very strange how it came about, but it was, of course, from Allah. We had a peace conference over in Dubai, and I think it was 2011. And a man took the microphone after my talk, and he held up the brochure that, and he said, I got this brochure. It said that this was a man who was a preacher in the Christian religion, and he came to Islam, said you were a businessman, and I want to ask, why would a preacher of Christianity go to Islam? As I began to explain the answer, I realized this man was very sincere. At first, I thought he was going to say all that to attack me or something, And I don't like that kind of thing. I was kind of worried that this guy is going to start some kind of debate or something. But then I could see in his face, and I said, you've been asking God to guide you, haven't you? He's like, yeah. And when I explained the word, as I did earlier in our program, before the break, I mentioned about these things in Islam, the word Islam. Surrender, submission, obedience, sincerity, and peace. And they all have to be together at the same time. And there's a word in Arabic that means all of that. He said, oh, what is it? I said, Islam. And then right then he just said, really? And he was so shocked. I saw it in his face. I said, okay, forget this conference. This man needs help right this minute. I walked off the stage, down through the audience. I went over to the man, and I shook his hand. He was looking at me like, what are you doing? And I started talking to him privately, just asking him, have you been searching for your relationship with God? He said, yes, I have. And I said, would you like to get closer to him now? He said, yes. I said, you can do that. Just say, I swear there's no God to worship except God. And I swear Muhammad is his messenger. And he started crying, and he said it, and then we said it in
أمام
Arabic.
الناس?
And the cameras were on us, and it went out all over the world. And that became one of the biggest of all of the dawah efforts that we did. Plus, it had millions of hits on the YouTube. When it came out, so many people saw it. It was the next year that the Emir for Dubai made his people contact me to come over for an award. They wanted to say I was the most influential Muslim in the world. And I thought it was a joke, so I hung up on them. And they called me back. And they were sending emails saying, you have won an award. And I'm like, get out of here. I get that kind of junk all the time. Get away from me, get away. And when he called me back again, he said, please, the Emir of, I said, you guys are persistent. What are you trying to sell, man? And then he started talking in Arabic, and I realized, okay, this guy might be for real. And when I went there, I told them, guys, you should have taken Dr. Zakir Naik, because he's much more influential than me. He's influenced more people, done more work than me, and he's helped me a lot. Give it to him. They said, no, the Emir wants you to have this. Okay. I said, well, anything that you guys want to do, I'm going to use it for the charity anyway, for Guys TV, something like that, so I'll do it. So I did. And the next year, they honored what I said, and they brought Dr. Zakir Naik and gave him the award for 2013. And I saw him a couple weeks ago, and I love Muslims. I love everybody who is trying to bring people together for the sake of a better future. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter if somebody says I'm a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim. It doesn't matter what they say. What matters is what they do, how they act, how they behave. This is very important to me. And I can work with anybody who wants to work with us. I have no problem with it.
هذا المفهوم الراقي للإنسانية وهو المعاملة، الدين المعاملة، يغيب عن كثير من الناس. يقيسون من أمامهم بطول اللحية أو قصرها أو طول الثوب أو قصره. هذا المفهوم الراقي الذي يجب أن يفهمه كل مسلم هو أن الدين المعاملة. ما هي أهم التحديات التي تواجه انتشار دعوة الإسلام في الغرب؟
I would say that my biggest personal challenge is to organize my time properly, for me to make the proper connections with the people. I'm blaming myself more than anything else. I don't see the outward as much as the inward as being a problem. On the outside, though, and to go to that, there are people who don't understand, and I give them benefit of the doubt. There are people who have put roadblocks up and try to stop what we're doing. But I think it's just because they don't realize the aspect we're coming from. For instance, when after 9/11, FBI came to me and we were talking, and they had an attitude. And I told them, listen, if you really think that good Muslims would do such things as 9/11, if you really think that, you do your math. Because if 1 out of 4, and this was according to Madeleine Albright at that time, the Secretary of State, she said 1 out of 4 people on the earth are Muslim. I said, if 1/4 of the population of the earth are all out to get you, you wouldn't be here. Think about it. They said, oh yeah, it makes sense. I said, and stop and think about this too, that every child is born as a Muslim. Now they're like, huh? According to us, every child is already perfect in their relationship with God. Babies are innocent. And when I told this in a church one time, I did it as a sort of a trick, you know. The preacher was very nice. He asked me to come and speak about Islam. And he knew a lot. He knew about hadith and ayahs. And I said, why don't you tell him? He said, I wanted to come from a Muslim because I wanted to be without any prejudice from me. You tell it. I was shocked. I said, okay. There's good people, man, I'm telling you. So I began explaining that, folks, I have to admit something. They said, what? I said, I have to admit, Muslims have been in your house and you didn't know it. What? I said, yep, they've been eating your food. Wearing your clothes. Sleeping in your beds. What? You know? Now, some of them were sitting there going, this guy's playing a joke, you know? I said, because according to us, every baby is born in the state of Aslama, on the fitra of Al-Islam. And according to us, that means that every child is, in a sense, a Muslim. The best relationship If a baby dies, we know that it goes straight to paradise because babies are not born in sin. They are born sinless. And I saw women crying. Some women had lost babies and they said, oh my God. And in that church, I saw people get very close to Islam. And then the preacher himself came up and said, tell us more about this and this and this. And as I began to explain, those people said, you guys are most welcome in our church anytime. And could we come to your mosque? We said, yes, welcome. And ever since then, I've been going to so many churches and so many religious gatherings and offering, if they would like for me to say a few words, and never try to push. But one time in Hagerstown, Maryland, a lady stood up while I was talking in the church on Sunday. She said, I'd like to enter Islam. I was shocked. I was like, shouldn't you wait till after, there's all these people here, and she said, is it okay? And she looked at the preacher. He said, yes, dear, you can. It's up to you. That's our policy in our church. Whatever you believe, you're welcome. She said, I want to be a Muslim. He said, okay. And she went and hugged the preacher because it was her father, her own father. Then another man accepted Islam in the church that same day. And then I took both of them that afternoon for Dhuhr Salah in the local mosque. And after they accepted Islam, they got to know each other and they became married. So there's beautiful stories, beautiful stories. I thought they would never invite me back to that church. Guess what? 3 months later, preacher called me, said, we loved having you, would you come again? So there's beauty in the people everywhere in the world. I don't want people to come away from this thinking, oh, all Americans are, hate Islam or hate Arabs. That's not true. We Americans are like anybody else on the planet. We are victims of what we're being fed. We don't know. We're being told this, we're being told that, shown these pictures, horrible pictures. And sometimes the pictures are actually reversed, as in recent history, which I don't need to mention what happened on ABC. But anyway, these things are they're irresponsible. And I want to be responsible and not bring more fitna or calamity to the table. I would like to bring more openness and give everybody a chance to see something that's beautiful.
باختصار في دقيقة، كيف تنظر لمستقبل الإسلام في أمريكا الشمالية والغرب؟
Many people ask this question, Ahmed. I'm not a prophet, I'm not a forecaster, I don't know, but I tell you what I hope. I hope that we have more television stations, not just mine. I hope we have more websites and more TV, radio stations, and more apps out there for your phones to let people know what is the truth and the balance. And then if people would like to know more, that we would open our arms and help them. We'd open our hearts and bring them in closer and let them see and understand the basics of Islam, because I do believe worldwide that there's going to be a change, a big change. There is a prediction, Ahmed, from our Prophet ﷺ, that in the end times there will be no more religion. There'll only be Islam and Kufr. That's a hadith of Rasul ﷺ. And I see that more and more people leaving these religions, more and more people coming to Islam. Some people leave Islam. Some people are leaving other religions. But it's becoming more and more like no religion and Islam. No religion, Islam. And by the way, you didn't ask this, but I will tell you that in some countries I visited, they're proud to be atheists. But they're also proud of the fact they're number one in the world for suicide. And when they said that, I said, I see a correlation here. I see something. You're telling me you got all these people that don't believe and all these people committing suicide? A true believer, Jew, Christian, or Muslim, would never commit suicide. Never. Because they know they'd be in hell forever. I would prefer you'd have a belief. I'd prefer you stay with your belief as to give it up. I don't want anybody to be away from faith, because it means you give up. Have faith. Whatever you want to believe in, then step by step we'll try to do better. But at least start with faith.
شكرا جزيلا لك. وأود أيضا سأعلن للمشاهدين عن اسم محطتك التلفزيونية الهداية في الولايات المتحدة التي تبث للتعريف بالإسلام، وكذلك الموقع الإلكتروني. شكرا جزيلا لك شيخ يوسف إستس. كما أشكركم مشاهدينا الكرام على حسن متابعتكم. في الختام أنقل لكم تحياتي فريق البرنامج، وهذا أحمد منصور يحييكم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Can I see you? Because I'd like to give you a big hug. All right. Jazakallah khair, Habibi. Barakallah feek.